Like to note that the Open Meetings Act is posted in the meeting room and is accessible to members of the public. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilman so requests. Item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of minutes for the regular meeting on February 6, 2023 is on file with the City Clerk's office. Item E, approval of the Treasurer's report of claims in the amount of $435,098.11. Approval of the Boswell report of claims in the amount of $121,046. Approval of write-off ambulance debts. Approval of pay request number 1, water transmission line project as part of the 2021 water SFR project from Judd Brothers Construction Company in the amount of $745,307.18 as recommended by the Board of Public Works. And resolution number 7012, executing the First Amendment to the farm lease between the city, Jared Bauman, and Mike Bauman to amend said farm lease to exclude Mike Bauman, leaving Jared Bauman the sole leasee for said farm lease. Council, any items you'd like removed? Seeing none, Mr. McLean.
I move that the items listed on the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and/or ratified as presented.
Second.
Gentlemen, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Tonight we have 2 public hearings. First public hearing is for the purpose of consideration of adoption plan modification PP to the redevelopment plan for redevelopment area number 1 for the property located at 2101 Ridgeview Drive.
Yeah, so this is the Accuma project. If anybody's not familiar with Accuma, up the industrial park for a TIF project. So we've gone to CRA, had a meeting, went to planning and zoning, had their meeting, came back to CRA for the cost benefit analysis, and now it goes to this body. All along, everybody's voted to approve this particular TIF project. Accuma's looking to add on to the east of their existing facility, about 52,000 square feet is what they're looking to add. If you look through the TIF analysis there, the cost benefit analysis comes out very positive. The end of this would add about $3.5 million worth of valuation to their particular property. Their TIF notice would be somewhere about $690,000 roughly, depending on exactly what their TIF eligible expenses come out to be. As far as expenses for the city, obviously, we already provide police and fire, and there's utilities out there and that kind of stuff. So those types of things would be negligible on our part. So we bring this body for your consideration, and then assuming approval here, we have CRA meeting scheduled for Friday.
Bob, how many people does Accuma
Do they employ?
employ?
When I talked to Accuma last time, I think they told me it was up to around 120.
And how much will this addition, how many more jobs will that create?
Initially, they don't know that this will create a lot of jobs. I think they've kind of thought of it being a warehouse space to start with, but they're going to build it so it could be manufacturing. But even my conversation with them last week was more manufacturing side. But it may, employ additional 8 people or so.
They run 3 full shifts, Rich. They run 24 hours.
I would just add that Accuma has been pretty much of a silent but very good partner for our community. They haven't asked us for anything that I can recall, so I don't know why we wouldn't appreciate that and move forward with this.
I agree. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, Mr. McLean, shall we close the hearing?
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:04 p.m.
Second.
All in favor? And that passes 6-0. Second public hearing is on the acquisition of real property from Ryan Johnson, described as follows: Lot 10, Block 61, Beatrice Original, Beatrice, Gage County, Nebraska, parcel number 009839000, commonly known as 708 Market Street. So I will open the public hearing.
So 708 Market Street, for those of you who like landmarks better, this would be behind Valentino's. There along Market Street, so basically the only single-family residence is still left on that particular block there. Craig Zarbernicki contacted Mr. Johnson, made him an offer. Mr. Johnson also accepted it. Then Mr. Zarbernicki approached the city about simply assigning his interest in that contract to the city. Craig is asking for no additional fees. He's not getting anything out of it. So your purchase price would be $18,000. We would hopefully close yet this month and acquire this particular property.
I would just add that I think this is a very forward-thinking acquisition of property. We should be thankful that Craig Zarbernicki probably offered it to us, and I think we should move forward with this in a positive way.
Discussion from the public. Seeing none. Mr. McLean.
I move the public hearing be closed at 7:06 PM.
Second.
Gentlemen, your vote. And that passes 6-0. We will move on to resolutions. First resolution number 7013, adopting plan modification PP to the redevelopment plan for redevelopment area number 1, which is the Accuma redevelopment project.
I move the resolution number 7013 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Gentlemen, any further discussion from the audience? Okay, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Resolution number 7014, executing the assignment of purchase agreement between the city and Craig Zarbernicki and Casey Zarbernicki to acquire real estate from Ryan Johnson, commonly known as 708 Market Street.
I move the resolution number 7014 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Gentlemen, any further discussion from the audience? All right, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Resolution number 7015, entering into an agreement for purchase and sale of renewable energy certificates between the city and ACT Commodities Incorporated, as recommended by the Board of Public Works.
I move the resolution number 7015 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So again, renewable energy certificates, we receive those off the Cottonwood Wind Farm. As it generates power, it generates these certificates as well. We simply put those into our savings account, if you will, and as they build up, we sell them about every 6 months or so. ACT Commodities is who we've done business with in the past. They approached us again about purchasing our last set of renewable energy certificates. We checked the price they offered us was a good price, and so we recommend selling what we have left, which would be 2022 energy certificates to ACT.
Any discussion from the audience? Gentlemen, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Resolution number 7016, executing the First Amendment to the contract of sale to real estate between the city and Kurt Hagerman to amend said contract to extend the completion and contingent payment dates.
I move the resolution number 7016 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So we entered into a contract with Kurt Hagerman several months ago to sell him the lot at 631 Bismarck Street. If you remember, part of that contract was that he paid us $2,000 immediately. He was to pay us an additional $8,000 unless he had a single-family residence built on that lot by February 1st of this year, 2023. He obviously has not done that. He's asked for an extension to give him time to build that single-family residence. He's asking that that additional $8,000 payment be delayed until Halloween or October 31st. If he completes the house by then, he does not owe us the payment. If he does not complete it, he has to pay us the additional $8,000. So this contract simply extends that due date of that additional $8,000 to October 31st of 2023.
Where's he at on the completion? Is he 3/4 done or?
So he has not started that house yet.
Oh, that's the one he just started. Okay.
He started. He's
All right.
got the one
I
on
was thinking it was the other. Okay. Sorry.
on Monroe Street. I mean, it's for sale.
Okay.
It's ready to go. Quite frankly, he didn't have the financing, I think, to build two houses at once, and so he got the first one off the market and now it's coming back to look to build this one starting in the spring here.
Okay.
Any other discussion from the public? Seeing none, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Resolution number 7017, executing any and all settlement agreements involving the opioid litigation brought by states and local political subdivisions against Teva, Agilent, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart, and any and all other documents necessary to receive the city's direct share of settlement proceeds and/or to be eligible to receive any additional distribution or grant from the state of Nebraska's share of said proceeds.
I move the resolution number 7017 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So this would be the third such settlement that we've entered into. The first two have been completed. We're getting our share of money. This would be another one that came up. As you see, it's with some different CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, some of those that sold these opioids. The city's share of it's unknown. We have to use it for programs that help combat the plague that is caused by opioid use. So we can't just use it to go buy fire trucks and that kind of stuff. It has to go back towards helping those with these types of problems. It's a $20 billion settlement. We'll get maybe thousands of dollars. So it's not a huge number. It's nothing that's going to significantly change the trajectory of the city of Beatrice, but at least these dollars come to us directly and we're able to use them.
Discussion. Okay, from the public. Seeing none, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Okay, item F, resolution number 7018, executing the declaration of trust and interlocal agreement and any and all other documents necessary between the city and the Nebraska CLASS Trust to adopt and enter into the declaration of trust and become a participant of the Nebraska CLASS Trust, purpose of the joint investment of the city's money with those public agencies so as to enhance the investment earnings accruing in each such public agency.
I move the resolution number 7018 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Okay, Tobias.
So Nebraska CLASS is a new trust that's being formed here in the state of Nebraska. They operate in other states already. The biggest one, I believe, is Texas that's out there. This trust in total has about $50 billion in assets. And what they do is basically they go and they pool municipalities, county governments, NRDs, public funds, if you will, into their account that then they are able to manage. The plus side for the city is we have liquidity and we earn better interest rates than we're currently able to earn. That's the advantage for the city here. City of Lincoln has signed up, Central City has signed up, Tecumseh has, Waverly has. Assuming that you guys approve it tonight and we're able to sign up, we would look to put some of our funds into this particular trust. Again, the benefit is that we have some liquidity to them. So when you start talking about what types of funds the city would look to put in there. So our EBA account, our health insurance account, right? It's not money that I need necessarily tomorrow in order to pay claims, but I can use more than the low interest rate that I'm receiving currently on that account. So if I can put some of those funds in here, still be able to pull it out and have it available to pay claims as I need it, but earn a better interest rate. Our infrastructure fees that we receive for water and wastewater, we build those funds up and then we do a project and we spend those dollars. Well, in the meantime, if I can put them someplace like here and have them available to me but be able to earn a better interest rate, in turn helps the city of Beatrice and those types of things. So we would not look to put all of our funds in here. We'd look to put some of those, but those are the types of funds we would look to put into this account.
Where do we currently keep it?
Today, it's currently at either Security First or Pinnacle Bank.
Give me the percentages.
Their percentages are, money market account, I believe, is about 0.05%. I believe we did get a CD the other day at 4%. But a CD, again, could light it up for, a year plus.
And this is gonna be what?
Probably this, right now what they're showing is about 4%, somewhere in there.
Tobias, I have assumed you've when we talked about this the other day, you've done your due diligence and you're okay with all this?
Yeah, I've met with the company a couple of times. Hannah's met with them. We've looked into their background. We've looked into the other trusts that they run, who they have involved in the trust. The amount of money we're putting in is pennies compared to what they manage across the country here. So yes, the other thing to keep in mind is they can only invest in what state statute allows them to. So they can't go out and buy junk paper. They can't do those types of things. It's not allowed by state law. So they cannot invest in those types of things.
Well, I think at our Thursday meeting when this was all discussed, I think everybody was in agreement, and I'm sure the rest of us are here tonight, that this is a very good investment of our money and will produce some pretty good income considering the amount that we put in.
How long have, like them other cities you mentioned, been involved with that?
So
Recently, or-
this whole trust just started this year.
Okay.
And so everybody's brand new to the account.
Okay.
$50 billion in a year, not a bad deal.
Anyone from the audience? All right, gentlemen, your vote, please. And that passes 6-0. Resolution number 7019, executing the First Amendment between the city and Envision Landscapes LLC and Alex L. Eckhoff for an economic development loan totaling $150,000 from funds derived from LB 840 funds regarding the collateral offered to secure the loan.
I move the resolution number 7019 be passed and adopted.
Second.
So we have an LB 840 loan with Mr. Eckhoff and Vision Landscapes. We made that here about 15 months ago or so, somewhere in there. He's current on payments, no problems there. He owns a house on North 13th Street that he put up as collateral, part of his collateral. He is looking to sell that house, and they have bought a new house on North 16th Street, and he's asking to release North 13th Street as collateral and add North 16th Street as collateral. From the city standpoint, there's actually more equity in North 16th Street than there is in North 13th, so we're in a better position by the transfer, and the agreement you have before you tonight would allow us to release their deed of trust on North 13th and add it to North 16th Street house.
Is the North 16th house worth $150,000?
Yes.
A hell of a lot more.
I didn't drive up by there, so I didn't.
It is.
Yeah.
2 times more.
Okey-dokey.
Any other discussion from the audience? Gentlemen, your vote, please. And resolution 7019 has passed 6-0. Tonight, there are no ordinances. They're giving me a break from reading all that, so that's good. And we'll move on to public forum. The purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council this time. Is there anyone here for the public forum? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for a few minutes of your time.
Just need you to state your name and address, and we'll
Do that.
get going.
My name is Deanne Caspers Moon. My address is 1807 Wildwood Circle. I'm here representing Caspers Construction this evening. And Roy Schwiezo with Building Tech would have also been here with me this evening, but he is cheering on his girls at sub-district basketball, so hopefully you will excuse him for that. The Beatrice Municipal Airport Building repairs request for qualifications was posted on January 27th. The RFQ is for repair work to roofs, walls, and other related items to the buildings at the airport that sustained damage during the June hailstorm. I confirmed with the city that this RFQ was only released on the city's Facebook page and on the city's website. For those of us who don't regularly use Facebook or the city's website, we received no notification. Customarily, the city emails local contractors of a project opportunity. It just takes a few minutes because there's a group list, but this was not sent. Projects are also usually published in the paper, but this RFQ was not. I went through all the city council minutes available on the website through August, and this project was never mentioned. Unfortunately, minutes for the airport authority were not available on the website prior to them becoming a city department, so I'm not sure if it was discussed there. As two of the city's local building contractors, we would have liked the opportunity to participate in this project. We've both been in business for a long time. We're licensed contractors. We think we have good reputations. Our companies really are not unknown in this area. Casper's actually constructed one of the buildings in the RFQ, so it would seem obvious that we are familiar with the project and would have been interested. As a taxpayer, I would hope that the intent in any project is to get the best bang for the city's dollar. Competition is the best way to do that. This does not seem to be in the spirit of competition. We all talk about buying local and the benefits of keeping dollars in our community. Casper's and Building Tech both pay sales tax and property taxes in this community. We support local businesses and charities, and we employ local citizens who also support local. The project references using subcontractors for certain scopes of work. Who better to ensure as much local participation as possible than those people who work with them every day? Both Roy and I felt that we had an amicable relationship with the city. We've both built buildings for the city. When the city needs to borrow something, they never hesitate to ask, and we never hesitate to let them borrow it. The way that this RFQ was handled is disappointing to us both. I, and on behalf of Roy, would respectfully request that all future construction projects be widely disseminated using multiple channels, including an email distribution. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we will move on to discussions and reports. And by the way, Boy Scouts, thank you for being here. First off, Chief Daake, Fire Department overview.
Brian Daake, Fire Chief, City of Beatrice. Want to address a couple of things, even the Mayor Morgan already did. I volunteer on the side. I'm the Scoutmaster for Troop 221, and these are some of our scouts that are here tonight. This is our regular meeting night, and they're here as part of requirements for their citizenship in the community and communications merit badge. So it works pretty well. The other item, a couple Sundays ago, we were involved in a motor vehicle accident, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning when the call came out. It was east of town, and within our protocols with this patient, they needed a higher level of care than was provided here in Beatrice. The patient needed a cath lab, essentially. So, we went to Lincoln, the accident occurred. We're reviewing our policies and procedures, making sure everything is in place, and I just wanted to get that out there. And as we were discussing this morning, we put a lot of miles on the road, and I hate that this happens, but it does happen, and hopefully here in the future we can avoid these things more so. But anyways, okay, back to my presentation. First off, we would like, as a department, we'd like to appreciate the citizens of Beatrice that approved the sales tax increase, so that way we could get out of the basement of the historic municipal city auditorium and get us into a public safety facility that is built for fire and EMS services. And there's been a lot of, we moved in December of 21. We've given a lot of tours, we've given some classes, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the layout, which 18 months in design, I think we got it pretty down very well. So we're very honored and thankful for the citizens of doing that. So, okay, so the career department was established back in 1910. Originally, Beatrice started off with 4 volunteer companies, which are what we would call departments nowadays. It's an East Coast terminology. As time moved along, they added a 5th company, and they were spread out through the town. And then even back in 1910, volunteerism was difficult, not quite as hard as it is today, but the employers in town were having problems with, volunteers leaving work, and that's when we started off with 4 career firefighters. And if I remember right, they got like 12 hours off for the whole week. So they would stagger lunches at home and things like that. And then, of course, probably the 2 most famous department members throughout history are Rock and Daake. They served from 1910 to 1916 when they were replaced by our first motorized vehicle. And when their retirement job, they delivered milk. and it was said that the gentleman that owned them, whenever they would hear the fire alarm go off, they would start heading that direction. So kind of this interesting little tidbit there. So, okay. All right. So today we've gone to 26 full-time employees. That's including myself. We have an administrative assistant, and then we have 24 shift personnels. And the guys work 24-hour shifts, and each shift is comprised of a captain, which is their shift supervisor, and then we have a combination of 7 firefighter, paramedic, and EMTs on board, and each shift is a little difference on the paramedic and EMT split out. Everyone is cross-trained, so you're an ambulance provider and a firefighter, depending on where you're at in that role of the day. And the guys work a Kelly Day system of 5-6. So for every 10 days, they work 5 24-hour shifts, and they get 6 off, which our old schedule is 24 on, 48 off. And both schedules, the guys end up working 10 24-hour shifts in a month's time. Okay. And this is just the picture board of all of our department members. The only picture that's not, well, Mike Massey retired here last month, so he's still up there. He's still one of us. So I thought we'd just go ahead and leave it there, but it's broken up by all the 3 different shifts on there. So, okay, and then the guys they come to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then they stay until 7 o'clock the next day. During that time, they do various duties besides responding to calls of services. They do equipment and vehicle checks. They perform light maintenance. They'll do some station maintenance. Training is always an ongoing challenge that we have to deal with. Public education events, fire prevention, pre-planning, which is going to a facility and kind of checking it out beforehand so we know where the exits are, fire alarm panels, those kind of things. And then with calls of service, the other thing that I don't have up there is patient care reporting. It takes up a good amount of time for the guys, and we're not report writing type people, so that probably is why it takes up more time than it should. But they'll come back, and when I started, it was handwritten. It had like 6 data points. Now they have to collect over 200 data points, and it's all electronic patient care reporting. So they've got a lot of boxes to check, and sometimes it takes longer to do a report than it does the call, as it does in a lot of public safety entities. So some of the different services that we provide, we are all hazard response. That's kind of the way emergency services are going on our end. We provide fire and EMS services for the city of Beatrice. For basically the bottom 2/3 of Gage County, we provide ALS all the time. In some places in Jefferson and Saline County as well. Up north in the county, we don't get called to assist paramedic-wise up that way very often. We do interfacility transfers, and then, as you can see with some of the pictures with our flooding, we've gotten some floodwater training, swift water rescue training, and then also with extrication and rope rescue materials there. And then also with the flooding, which don't flood this year, we have our disaster response that we do. We're a hazardous materials response team with the state. We've been doing that for 23, 24 years. We've been called out a handful of times, but usually we haven't had to deploy the whole team. We've been able to keep it at a lower scale and basically go consult with somebody before we had to deploy all our resources. We've got a handful of the paramedics that do the tactical SWAT medic thing. We provide public education, and then pretty much when they don't know who else to send, they send us to go take care of these things. And then also, with our community involvement, we like to, do the parades, station tours. We do standbys out at a lot of the high school sports. I think tomorrow we're leading out the swim team to state. We did the wrestlers here recently, and so on and so forth. So emergency medical services. Dr. Don Rice, he's our physician medical director. He's been with us for about probably 15 years easily. He's really, his passion is saving human life. So a lot of the stuff that we have done is with his passion behind it. There have been several state protocols that have been written because of protocols that Dr. Rice had established with us first. The STEMI, of course, was the big one, which, if you have the STEMI heart attack, take you right up to a cath lab, bypass the places that don't have cath labs. That has since become state protocol. So that way the whole state's doing it. Right now we have 16 paramedics, 2 advanced EMTs, and advanced EMTs basically they can do cardiac care. They can't do some of the other care that the paramedics can do. And both of those guys are actually currently going through paramedic school as well. And then we have 17 EMTs. And then one thing Tobias asked us to go on is our rates. So this is last year's numbers with EMS rates, and kind of hard to see with the tiny font. It's not friendly. But it shows a number of the career agencies that do transport, what their rates are, and at the very bottom is an average, and we're kind of right around that average list with that. And like I said, this was last year's numbers, so we'll probably be reviewing this next year during budget to see if we want to change rates or not, because it's complicated because it's got Medicare, Medicaid, insurance companies involved. It's not just a simple, this is what it cost us type thing. So, okay. And then basically just kind of showing 1995 was our first year of, first full year of the ambulance service. And that was a little over 1,700 calls. And then how this last year, we hit another record of just shy of 3,100 calls of service. And it kind of shows that trend there. And it goes up and down as time goes along. We've got a new reporting software, and this graph that you're seeing here, it is basically showing how many calls for service we had that day. So like on January 22nd, which is that first little dip down, we had three calls, and that's the day, that's not the shift. So, because, the 7 a.m. to 7 a.m., they work two half days by calendar. And then like March 20th, that high peak, that's 18 calls. In early December, B shift had a day where their shift, they had 21 calls of service for that day. So that was technically the busiest shift, but it just kind of shows how the ebbs and flows throughout the year goes with our calls for service. And as you can see, 12% of what we do are fire responses, and 88% of those are EMS, medical services. The next graph shows how many calls we've had of service based upon the hour. And I really should have got bigger print on this one. But it shows like the noon hour, 3 o'clock are kind of the peak times. People are out and about a little bit more, checking in on their loved ones, going to and fro. So it kind of shows that, in a year's time, we had, I'm not going to try to read those numbers, they're too small for me. But anyways, you can tell by the graph how busy we are by the time of day. And then the last thing, some of the challenges that we're seeing and have been seeing for some time. There's always been that increased demand for service. We're getting older as a population. Socioeconomic conditions with inflation and so forth are creating other challenges as well. Like every industry, we've got workforce issues. We'll be hiring here. I think March 23rd is when we're doing our test date, so we'll kind of see how many we end up having apply. Last I checked, which was a while ago, we had like 5 or 6, which March 10th is the deadline for applications, so that's too early for most of our people to apply. It's not last minute yet. But, in talking with other fire departments, they're seeing decreases in applications. Some of them have actually lowered their standards to try to get more numbers in to apply. So we'll just kind of see how that goes. And then, of course, we got the whole supply chain issue. We had in April of last year, we ordered a new self-contained breathing apparatus, and they might be here in March. They might not. Originally, they said they'd be August, and that just keeps getting kicked back. If we ordered a new ambulance today, it would be until November of 2025. And then, a fire truck is anywhere from 36 to 48 months out on purchasing. Luckily, on the EMS side, we had that medication shortage there for a while. That has righted itself, at least, so we're not dealing with those challenges. But overall, we're kind of facing the same challenges as everyone else. So, final comment. I speak for myself and my staff that we're very proud and honored to serve the citizens of Beatrice, and that's all I got.
Questions?
I just had a quick question. Do you think, when you talked about recruitment, do you think the new the fire station will help in recruitment because of the great facilities?
I think it is, because some of the things that I've been researching and talking to people that are looking for jobs or have looking for jobs is one of the things that they're looking at is where, since it's a 24-hour shift, what kind of facility are they going to be living in? And they also look at what kind of ambulances they're going to be riding in. Because there is a huge difference there. And then also, shift work, pay, and all those other things. So I think that's definitely going to help us in the long run.
I would think so, yeah. It was a great facility, so.
Yep.
Chief, I just got maybe two questions. When Beatrice gets called to do mutual aid with, Wymore or whatever, when you're going down there, and you get 10 miles out and they say, oh, we don't need you. Does anybody get charged the $17 a mile?
Okay, so that's only loaded miles. Okay, so once the patient's on board, then we charge the 17 miles. We do have it set up with our agreement with Wymore EMS that if they cancel us, that we charge them $100 for that. So, but if it's a fire call and we get called off, there's nothing in there for charging.
That's it. I ain't gonna ask about the ambulance 36 to 48 months or whatever it was. That's crazy.
It is insane.
I think what you'd said this morning is we're very fortunate with the one that got wrecked. We'll be up and running quicker than that,
yes,
thanks to the people we work with.
Yeah, according to the company that we purchased the ambulance for, if everything ends up the way they think it is, they're going to be able to put the box on a new chassis, and then hopefully by the end of the year we'll have that back in service. So, but we'll see once it's in the shop.
So I don't have a question, but he's presenting the report to us, but if there's anybody in the public that'd like to ask him a question, help yourself. And if you scouts, if you want to ask something to your scout leader, this would be your time.
Good time to trip him up,
Yep.
Well, Sean, and thank you very much for what you do. I mean,
Yeah,
I
thank
think,
you.
we're very, very fortunate to have the services we have in Beatrice, and I'm 100% sure that saved a lot of lives over the years from 1910 on up. So thank you, and thank you for going first.
Okay, no problem. Thank you all.
All right. We're going to continue our discussion on ATVs and UTVs. I know this was on last month. I think the traffic committee met and had maybe more questions than answers. So,
Yeah, after the last meeting, I know we sat down. One of the questions just kind of was, what do other communities out there have? And so we got some of that information. What we have found is, again, we looked at similar sized communities, ones that do not allow ATVs or UTVs. My information shows Seward, McCook, Lexington, York, and Gering. Columbus, Fremont, North Platte, and Scottsbluff allow UTVs, but not ATVs. Crete, Alliance, Nebraska City, North Fork, and Schuyler allow both. That's the information we had out there that we found.
What was the first ones you read off?
That do not have it. And I know I said Seward, but I think you've said Seward does allow them, so.
I talked to Chief Peters up there this last week. It was just recently passed by their city council, like in the last 90 days.
So we may have some
Yep,
more information
yep,
there.
Yep.
When the traffic committee met, a few of the things that they kind of came up with or made suggestions, and again, I'm going to defer to Mr. Fralin if I have anything or misstated here, but to not allow three-wheelers, so ATVs, UTVs, but not three-wheelers, to require a helmet for ATVs and a helmet or seatbelt for a UTV, depending on what the vehicle has in it. To have a passenger limit of 1 for an ATV, and it has to be on the seat. And for UTV, it's based upon the number of seats that UTV has. That would limit the number of people. Not to allow on trails. Parks, we probably just need to clarify a little bit more. Hard surface streets is one thing. Driving in the grass is a different thing, right? We just kind of make sure we clarify that portion of it. Need to talk about registration. See what your guys' feeling on that one is. And then controlled access highway, we did some research. What the state Department of Transportation sent us today was this fancy map. This is what they have. They need to get some more information on the interior of Nebraska, of Beatrice. But what this shows is Highway 77 coming from the north to about Dorsey Street. So Dorsey Street north would be controlled access, and roughly Market Street south would be controlled access. But in between, they're showing that it's not. Highway 136 from Highway 4 to about 24th Street on the east side being not controlled access. We're trying to confirm that, but the lady I called, that James called, she had this map hanging on her wall that her predecessor used, and so that's what she knew. So we'll get some more information exactly what that means on there. So with that, I turn over.
Some of the other discussion that I've had, prior to this meeting with Tobias was, I brought this to the council, but I've talked to other council members. I'm definitely not in favor of putting them on Highway 77. That is, 4 lanes. 136 is only 2 lanes with a center lane. That's not a big deal to me. And the gentleman that spoke before in our previous meeting, I've spoken with them as well, are in agreement. They don't see a reason to have them on 4-lane highways. And registration, I know I've talked to some councilmen that were concerned about how we would track them. One of the things I mentioned to Tobias was I would hesitate to apply a registration fee until 2024, pending the outcome of LB 66 that's in front of the state legislature, which would require everybody to register their UTVs, ATVs, whatever, just like you do your car. If at the point of 2024 LB 66 does not pass, then I would suggest that at that point we would look at putting a registration fee on. And the reason being is we want something to be able to, if my little niece jumped on my UTV and took off on it and got away from the police officers, well, how many UTVs look like mine? They don't know whose it is. There we got a reflective license plate indoor sticker on the back. They can go to the owner then and say, hey, this happened, and follow the legal ramifications from that point. It shouldn't just be a getaway free card, So I did bring up we had talked about the city parks to be able to keep them on hard surface roads. Obviously, our parks are meant to be beautiful and not tore up by vehicles. One of the other things that came up was, what is the definition of a golf cart? A golf cart has got the little smooth tires on it with places to hold your golf clubs on the back. There are buggy companies that produce golf cart-like vehicles with headlights, taillights, and everything else. And speaking with the other police chiefs that I've spoke to around southeast Nebraska through the middle of Nebraska, they consider those a UTV type vehicle with the knobby tires, and as long as they got the headlights, taillights, flag, and everything else that's required in the state statute already. So Those you are allowed, most of them are 4 passenger vehicles, 2 facing forward, 2 facing backwards. We just have to make a determination from there on what we wanted to do as far as, because I've been on those vehicles on the back and on the front, and there is not a seatbelt. So I believe in keeping the helmet on the ATV, just like Tobias mentioned. If your UTV doesn't have seatbelts, well then you get to wear a helmet. So I think, unless anybody else got any other questions for me, I think that pretty much sums up the meeting and anything else I've had with the other. I did speak to a chief who, his words were, "I'm not fond of the way it became a part of our city." I won't say the city, won't say the chief's name, but it was brought to the city council by a member from another community. The city council voted and approved it right away without any consultation like we have done here in the city, with speaking with other people in the town, doing any research whatsoever, finding out any information. So that was his only objection. So I'll leave it there.
Insurance.
Required.
Yeah, state law requires it.
Liability insurance.
What's that?
Liability insurance.
Just like on a motor vehicle.
Yep.
Rich?
Well, I had 2 things.
And I'm sorry. So is all that required to carry on the vehicle and the officer stops them?
The insurance, you got 5 days to present your insurance card by state statute.
That's my only question.
Toby, that picture you got from Lincoln,
Yes.
so much here, then it's okay here, and so much here.
But-
That would be awful confusing, wouldn't it?
Basically,
Not only for the police department, but the people in general. I would be more in favor of just keeping them completely off the highways, except for, I think you said 90-degree crossing.
Right, they're allowed to cross.
Allowed 90-degree. And the second thing, as far as the registration, I think they should be, like Tim said, be registered with the city, come in, show us proof of insurance. Because I don't want one of them hitting me in the back and, all of a sudden they don't have insurance. We're required proof of insurance with cars.
I'm going to address that in a second.
I've only been contacted by 3 people since we started this discussion. The one that called me was concerned about the noise, and I've been around the ATVs and the UTVs. Most of them have mufflers on them, and I did advise that I have motorcycles, Harley Davidsons with no mufflers go by my house all the time, and they're racking the pipes, so I don't think that was a factor. And another one was, they're going to tear up our parks and our trails. Well, I pay a visit to all of our parks about once a week. And guess what? Riverside Park had 2 tracks of vehicles, drove right through the ditch and up over the grass. And we've had those kind of problems as long as I can remember. We can't fix the idiots in this town that destroy our public property. And the last thing I got was an email that I think everybody here got. And that person claimed that all the bad things that could happen from this can and will happen. Well, I can't foresee the future, so I don't know what can and will happen. And then they also complained about getting on Highway 77 by the skating rink. Well, every time you do that, if you're coming from Belvedere, you're taking your life in your own hands. Bob, you know that. You come by there all the time. So I don't think I appreciated their concerns. But I think that at some point we need to get this on for an up or down vote, and we can discuss this forever. But I think we need to get to a point where we're going to get it for an up or down vote and be done with this one way or another.
I just want to thank Tim for all the research to kind of help learn a little bit here. I noticed some of the communities limited to the UTVs, which to me are more of a vehicle type, a little safer looking. Would you be a possibility of a compromise to eliminate the ATVs off it and just go with the UTVs? Have you had much?
I'm open for anything, Mike. Honestly.
To me, the four-wheelers, you might get a little more, the $300 one, the guy bolts you in the garage on the street, where the UTVs are very expensive vehicles that are a lot safer. I mean, it's just a thought.
One of the phone calls I received was, well, I can't believe you'd let these on the streets. How are we going to see them? And it was a female. I don't know her age. It sounded older. Just worried that she was never going to be able to see these vehicles. Well, you know, a motorcycle is what, 2 foot wide, Gary, with one headlight on the front. Your ATV is 60 inches wide with 2 headlights on the front, taillights on the back, just like any other vehicle. These are bigger, wider vehicles. It's not like, you know, people do say they have problems seeing motorcycles. That's why you should always look twice. Just getting that plug in for motorcycle people. So they're actually bigger and in most cases safer than motorcycles. So hopefully that addresses her concern. It did on the phone that day, and if there's other people that this gets out to that are concerned about the UTVs, then certainly realize that these are almost as big as a compact car these days. They're not real small. They're pretty big objects.
I would just like to maybe consider limited to the UTVs possibly. So that's all I got.
What is the requirement for like the flags? Don't they have to have flags on them, those two?
30 square inches of the, I forget the word of the fluorescent
Day glow in
orange.
color.
Day glow in color,
They
yeah.
have to be no less than 5 feet from the ground.
So it has to be at least 5 feet from the ground to the top of the
Correct.
flag.
Correct.
Okay.
How about from the audience?
Bob, I have one question. So safety equipment, you mentioned motorcycles. I turned mine on, the headlights on, taillights on. Is that on these? I'm
It's
not.
required at all times to have headlights and taillights on.
Yeah, at all points during operation, ATVs or UTVs, the headlights and taillights have to not only be operational but be on, and use is limited only from sunrise to sunset. So you're not
Yes.
worrying about these driving around at night or anything like that.
God, I can't remember her name.
Anybody from the public?
Got 2, 3 little.
Come on up.
Is that a question? So we have registration.
You got to tell us your name and address.
Name and address.
Tanya Good, 1410 North 16th Street.
Okay.
So you have to have registration and insurance. Do you have to have a license or
Yes.
just an age limit?
Yeah, you do have to have a Class O operator's license, just like you would for a car.
Okay, so people driving have to be older than 16 to.
Correct.
drive.
Right. They would have to have their license. They'd have to go through the POP process.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's fine.
Good question.
So I think should be able to cite most of this off. You have to have a Class O driver's license, liability insurance, the 30 inches of day glow, headlights, taillights, muffler, sunrise to sunset, and cross controlled access highways at a 90-degree with the highway.
Correct. And the only other thing I would add to that is during the traffic committee meeting, there was discussion of maybe adding the requirement of rear view mirrors to UTVs. There are a lot of other city ordinances that really get into the thick of the weeds as far as equipment goes. But I mean, as long as you got functioning taillights, headlights, either helmet or safety belt requirements on there, really the only other thing that came up with that would be rear view mirrors.
And I have a rear view mirror in mine, so.
So one question or thought that I had that you may or may not be open to, is this something that we would, if it would pass, we would put a year sunset on it so we can reevaluate? I mean, you know, this is relatively new. There's some people that I was contacted with that have some safety concerns. I mean, if you go for a year and there's no safety concerns and Chief Hickman doesn't have any concerns, then we know we've made a good decision.
It's not that I'm in total disagreement with you, Mr. Mayor, but if John Q. Public comes in and says he has a safety concern about a motor vehicle driving on the highway that is manufactured by a big three auto dealer, are we going to stop them from driving on the road? I'm just pointing that out there. I'm not.
I get your point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
it was just one of the things that
Yeah.
crossed my mind.
Now with Mike's suggestion, I mean, we could see how the UTVs go and then add stuff later. But at any point, the city council can withdraw anything based off of accidents and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to put a year sunset on it, yeah, that's fine. But I would think that we would start seeing people who weren't horsing around and getting themselves into accidents that would be up here saying exactly what I said. Are we gonna take S10 pickups off the road? Or are we gonna take compact cars off the road? I mean, I'm just pointing out things that I see coming up. I'm not arguing with your point at all.
Right.
So,
Well, I think at this point, we'll refer it back to anybody else from the public?
My name is Margaret Haith. That rhymes with faith. My concern is, if they pass this and you put on all these regulations, who enforces them? Because right now, what I see in this town, and that was one of the issues that I brought up, moving back here after being gone for 30 years and moving back here about 2.5 years ago, there's a complete disregard for speed limits with cars. So, who's going to enforce that these people are following all these rules and regulations that the city council is going to establish? People I have talked to, bringing this subject up, have said things like they think Beatrice is just too large, and even though they're not supposed to ride on the highways, again, who's going to stop them? They're supposed to just cross, but, well, nobody's around. Maybe I can drive 2 or 3 blocks or 4 blocks or 6 blocks or whatever on the highway. Who's going to enforce that? It's too big. And then the other issue is just that, I guess. There was something else and I can't think what it was, but that they just, my concern with things aren't enforced the way they are, so why do you think anything else is going to get enforced? Oh, and the age, that was another one, because I have a 14-year-old grandson that looks pretty close to, so he's riding one of these ATVs and he's not supposed to be. Well, are they going to stop everybody that they've got a question about to see if are you truly 16 years old? Maybe his friend is and he's riding his ATV. I mean, it's just, like, again, these unintended consequences is what is going to happen, I do believe. So, thank you.
Before you go, we need your address.
Oh, sorry. 104 West Granville, here in Beatrice.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we will see what the traffic committee can put together. All right. Next item on the agenda, the CDBG revolving loan fund.
Yeah, this is something we haven't talked about for a while, but the city's had a CDBG revolving loan fund for years. If you will remember, a number of years ago, probably 3 years ago, so the state came and said, we want everybody to get rid of these funds, so either turn them back into the state or repurpose them for something else. An eligible repurpose was for architectural barriers, to remove architectural barriers, so make things ADA compliant. We sat down, we kind of came up with a list of things. The council voted on what their top priorities were. There are about 6 that kind of rose to the top. One was installing a bathroom along the trail system. We've got that completed. One was eliminating some hollow sidewalks in the downtown. We put about $200,000 into sidewalks in the downtown area. A third one was to do some sidewalks in Chautauqua Park. However, Chautauqua Park's in the floodplain, and to use CDBG dollars in the floodplain requires a lot of federal paperwork, and so we prefer not to do that particular project with these funds. So what we're looking for tonight is just some guidance of what you'd like to spend the remaining dollars on. We have about $93,000 left. We have some of that in cash today, about $78,000. We have a loan that's out there being repaid. It should be repaid this year, so we should end about $93,000 worth. The other projects that you had in your top 6 that have not been completed are some sidewalks in Hannibal Park. The trail along Highway 136 from 24th to 26th Street. We've applied for a grant on 2 occasions for that one and been turned down. And to install ADA playground in some various city parks. The one we've applied for twice is for an ADA playground at Sertoma Astro Park. That one's been denied twice. So your $93,000 will not fund any of those. So if we get some guidance, we'll go back. We'll try to figure out where we think we can come up with the additional funds and then bring it back for final approval. But we're just looking for some guidance on how you would like to spend the remaining dollars.
I guess for me, if you look, I like to see that trail from 24th, 26th Street finished. I think for the safety and there's a lot of activity with the kids in the school. That's just my opinion.
How much more are you gonna need?
So that trail, we budgeted, on the last grant, we budgeted about $123,000. So you'll need roughly 30 on that one.
I'd agree with Mike.
I would too.
Yep.
I would too.
Yeah, that was when we voted on these things before and put them into order, that piece to the school was the top of my list. I would keep it there.
That's fine too.
Sounds like we have the project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
All
pretty
right.
easy.
And the city administrator's monthly report.
Yeah, so a couple of,
I think Taylor should have to go out and take pictures.
we can make him take some pictures, some more pictures. So update you on a few things. The Court Street corridor study is set for March 27th. I think we're looking at 4 to 6 p.m. We're going to be in the city auditorium. Exactly where at is yet to be determined, but we'll be in that facility there. Again, this will kind of be the first opportunity to get some public input on what people would like to see when we beautify Court Street, assuming that project moves forward and we're able to move the highway. So we'll remind you several more times as we move forward, but March 27th will be that date. And then a question was asked the other day about fire station bonds, and so I have some information for you. If you recall, we issued bonds in 2019, and we issued bonds in 2021 for the fire station. Those all expire or are set to be retired in 29 and in 30. We had estimated that our sales tax would bring in about $90,000 per month. So far, we're averaging about $113,000 per month. So we're ahead of schedule. So right now, we're about a year ahead of schedule as far as dollars received versus what we had budgeted. So right now, once we get enough kind of funds built up, we'll probably look to call in a year or two of the bonds, but we're not quite there yet. So as of today, we've received about $3.95 million in sales tax dollars.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question. At what point do we start calling in the bonds? So is that rule of thumb 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? I mean, how far do we go here?
So we'll probably look at it about a year from now again and kind of see where we're at as far as dollars in. We want to make sure that if I make that payment, I've got enough to make the next bond payment, and we
Right.
don't
Yeah, and
leave
especially
ourselves
if
short.
it goes, if it turns south and we don't collect the night. Have we had a month that we were under what we estimated?
So the last month that we were under what we estimated was January of 21.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, I'm mistaken. No, let me take that back. The last month we were under what we estimated was April of 20.
April of 20?
April 20.
Was that kind of the COVID period, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a few other things going on that time period, right? So,
Well, and this is a sales tax thing and everything costs more, so.
And that was right in about the middle of COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
People weren't out spending. And we would like to thank the public for spending at home because these are the projects we do with your taxpayers' money.
So in theory, if we, I hate to put you on the spot with the math, but I'm saying we had a 15-year bond, we're 3 years in, reduce it by, so in theory, you can have this, if on the same track, you could probably have this paid for in the next 8 years?
So we issued 10-year bonds,
10 years bonds,
right? And so they are set to retire in 29 and in 30.
okay? So we
can probably get to 28 and 29
okay?
pretty conservatively.
So have it paid for in 6 or 7,
Yeah.
okay?
And the 21 bonds were about $2.7 million.
Right.
The 2019 bonds were $7 million. So they were more, the 2019 bonds were significantly more.
Okay.
When that gets paid off and we haven't bonded much, that's about all oh, isn't it?
On the city side of things, yeah, the only other debt that the city has on their side of the ledger is sanitation has some debt outstanding for their up and operational expenditures to start with. There's no public safety debt. We'll probably come back to you in another budget cycle or two to look at some public safety debt. And on the utility side of things, their last bond payment should be made and paid off this summer. So utility side should be debt-free as well here very soon.
Boy, that sounds good.
Hey, just for a point of, like, you said that sidewalk was 123,000.
Yeah.
But in your report, it's 160,000. Is 123 the accurate number?
So
It shows Pioneer Trail Extension 13624. It says 160,000 estimated cost. Was the 123 a real cost?
So 123 was the last number we budgeted and we put together in our last grant application.
I'm good.
So I would defer to the engineer to see how he came up with his estimate.
Okay. Like, wait, there's $37,000 here. We got to figure this out. So.
Okay, the next regular city council meeting is March 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the BPS Administrative Building room here. And there will be a work session next Monday night, February 27th, 2023. JEO will be here to give their final findings for the Lincoln Street project. We'll focus on their report, which covers 5th Street to 22nd Street. Mr. McLean,
I move the meeting be adjourned at 8:06 p.m.
Second.
your vote, please. Meeting is adjourned 6-0. Thank you very much. Thank you those who came.